The orbital station hung in space like a massive jewel above the planet Verathos. Inside its largest chamber, representatives from dozens of alien civilizations gathered around a circular platform. The air hummed with translation devices working to convert hundreds of languages into coherent speech. This was the Galactic Council, the most powerful organization in known space. Commander Tae Yang stood at attention beside his colleagues. His military uniform felt uncomfortably tight under the weight of so many alien eyes studying him. Next to him, Dr. Hana adjusted her datapad nervously. She was Earth's primary speaker today, chosen for her expertise in alien biology and her diplomatic skills. Ambassador Quan stood behind them both, his weathered face calm despite the tension in the room. Above them, on raised platforms, the council members looked down with expressions ranging from curiosity to open contempt. High Arbiter Vexthal dominated the center position. His insectoid body gleamed under the lights, compound eyes reflecting the humans like broken mirrors. 6 limbs clicked against his throne as he shifted his massive bulk. Hana stepped forward when her turn came to speak. Her voice echoed through the chamber as the translation devices picked up her words. She spoke about Earth's achievements. Humanity had discovered faster-than-light travel only 15 years ago. They had established colonies on 6 worlds. They wanted peaceful trade and knowledge exchange with the galaxy's older civilizations. The council listened in silence. When Hana finished, Vexthal leaned forward. His mandibles clicked together in what might have been amusement. He gestured with one clawed limb, and holographic displays filled the air above the humans. The images showed Earth's history. Centuries of warfare flashed past. Humans fighting with swords, then guns, then missiles. Cities burning. Mushroom clouds rising. Environmental destruction spreading across continents. The display paused on images of Earth's scarred surface, showing depleted forests and polluted oceans. A murmur ran through the council. Some aliens chittered or hissed in their own languages. Taeyang felt his jaw tighten, but he kept his expression neutral. He had expected this. Vexthal spoke, his voice deep and resonant. The translations came through clearly. Humanity was violent, primitive. They had barely left their home world before nearly destroying it. They possessed no energy shields. Their weapons were basic kinetics, little more than metal projectiles thrown at high speeds. Their biology was fragile compared to most spacefaring species. Another council member spoke up. This one resembled a floating mass of tentacles within an environmental suit. It questioned why the council should even consider such a backward species. Perhaps humans would be better suited as laborers for more advanced civilizations. Laughter rippled through some sections of the assembly. Taeyang watched it happen with cold eyes. He cataloged every species that laughed, every face that showed contempt. Old military habits died hard. War Prime Kelthor rose from his seat. The Crethean commander stood nearly 3 meters tall, his scaled body covered in ceremonial armor. He was the military leader of the Council's enforcement fleet, the most feared warrior in known space. His species had conquered 40 worlds before joining the Council. Kelthor activated his own holographic display. It showed battles between the Cretheans and lesser species, advanced aliens with energy weapons and shields cutting through primitive defenders in minutes, fleets dissolving under directed energy fire, planets surrendering after brief demonstrations of power. He turned to face the humans directly, his reptilian eyes fixed on Taeyang. Through the translator, his words came out calm and measured but dripping with superiority. He explained that in this galaxy, strength determined status. Humanity had no strength. Their ships were slow. Their weapons were crude. Their bodies would break under sustained combat conditions. Kelthor gestured at Taeyang's uniform. He noted the medals and ribbons. He asked what wars humanity had won that made them think they deserved a place at this table. What enemies had they defeated? What worlds had they conquered? Taeyang felt Hana's hand briefly touch his arm, a silent plea for him to stay quiet. Ambassador Quan stepped forward smoothly, his diplomat's instincts taking over. He explained that humanity sought membership not as conquerors but as partners. They offered unique perspectives and untapped potential. More laughter from the council. Vexthal raised a limb for silence. He conferred briefly with other senior members. The humans waited, standing in the center of the chamber while their fate was decided above them. Finally, Vexthal announced the decision. Humanity would be granted provisional status as a protectorate. They would pay tribute to the council in resources and technology. They would accept oversight of their military and expansion. They would have limited trading rights. In exchange, the Council would provide protection and access to certain technologies. The terms were harsh. Taiyang knew it immediately. So did Quan and Hana, but they also knew Earth had no choice. Refusing would mean isolation, possibly even preemptive military action if the Council deemed humanity a potential threat. Quan accepted the terms with dignity. He bowed formally, thanking the Council for their consideration. The meeting concluded, and the humans were escorted from the main chamber. As they walked through the station's corridors toward their ship, Taiyang heard voices behind them. His enhanced hearing, a product of minor genetic modifications common among Earth's military, picked up the conversation. Two council members spoke casually, their translators not realizing humans could hear. They joked about humanity, suggested humans might make adequate servants, laughed that humans were not even worth hunting for sport, too weak to provide any challenge. One mentioned that at least humans would be amusing to watch as they struggled under council regulations. Taiyang's hands clenched into fists. Hana noticed and glanced at him with worry, but he kept walking, his face revealing nothing. Later, on their ship heading back to Earth, the three humans sat in the command cabin. Quan looked older somehow, the weight of what he had agreed to pressing down on him. Hana stared out the viewport at the stars, her earlier nervousness replaced by something harder. Taiyang broke the silence. His voice was quiet but intense. He reminded them that humans had survived worse than this. Their ancestors had lived through ice ages with nothing but animal skins and stone tools. They had survived plagues that killed millions. They had fought world wars and rebuilt from ashes. He spoke about the Council's arrogance. They thought humanity was weak because their technology was less advanced. They did not understand what it took to survive on Earth. They had never faced a species that evolved as both predator and prey, that learned to make weapons from anything, that turned their own planet's hostility into a forge for resilience. Quan listened and nodded slowly. Hana turned from the viewport, her expression thoughtful. Taiyang continued. The Council had dismissed humanity as insignificant. That was good. Let them think humans were harmless. Let them believe their own superiority. Because humanity had learned one crucial lesson throughout its bloody history. When facing a stronger enemy, you did not fight fair. You adapted. You learned. You waited for the right moment. And when that moment came, you struck without mercy. The ship continued its journey home. Behind them, the Council station grew smaller against the stars. None of the humans spoke again, but they all understood. This was not the end. It was the beginning. The galaxy had just made a terrible mistake. They had dismissed humanity's threat. Soon they would learn why that was the last thing they should have done. 3 years had passed since Earth accepted the Council's terms. Captain Minji gripped the controls of her freighter as it dropped out of faster-than-light travel. The ship shuddered slightly, old engines protesting the transition. Next to her, Engineer Doyen checked the sensor readings. They were approaching Haven 7, a mining colony on the edge of human space. The cargo hold behind them carried medical supplies and equipment the colonists desperately needed. Life on the frontier was hard, and the Council's tribute demands made it harder. Doyen frowned at his console. He reported multiple contacts ahead. Military ships. Minji felt her stomach tighten. She asked him to identify them. The answer came back quickly. Krethian warships. 6 of them forming a blockade around the colony. Minji swore under her breath. She opened a communication channel to Haven 7's ground control. The voice that answered sounded stressed. The controller explained that the Krethians had arrived 2 days ago. They were demanding additional tribute beyond what the Council agreement specified. The colony administrator had protested, citing the official terms. The Krethians did not care. Minji asked if she could dock. The controller hesitated, then warned her that the Krethians were boarding any ship that approached. They were seizing cargo as additional tribute. If Minji came closer, she would lose everything in her hold. Doyen suggested they turn back. Minji considered it. These supplies would bankrupt her if she lost them. But the colonists needed them. People would die without proper medical equipment. Before she could decide, a Krethian patrol ship moved to intercept them. A harsh voice came through the communication channel, demanding they halt and prepare for boarding. Minji complied. She had no choice. Her freighter had no weapons and running would just get them destroyed. Krithian soldiers boarded through the airlock. They were massive creatures, scaled and armored. They moved through her ship like they owned it, checking the cargo. Their commander, a scarred veteran with missing scales on one side of his face, looked at the medical supplies with contempt. He declared that the Krithian Empire was seizing the cargo as tribute. Minji protested, showing him the shipping manifests and council trade permits. The commander struck her across the face with the back of his clawed hand. She fell hard, tasting blood. Doyen moved to help her, but Krithian weapons pointed at him immediately. The commander explained in broken human language that permits meant nothing. Might determined rights. The Krithians were mighty. Humans were not. They took everything. The medical supplies, spare parts, even personal items from the crew quarters. Then they left, their heavy footsteps echoing through the ship. Minji sat on the deck, her face already swelling. Doyen helped her up, rage visible in his usually calm expression. But worse was yet to come. As Minji's freighter limped toward the colony for emergency repairs, the communication channels erupted with panicked voices. On Haven 7's surface, colonists had gathered to protest the tribute demands. The Krithian commander there, War Prime Kelthor himself, had ordered his soldiers to fire into the crowd. 3 humans died instantly. Kelthor's voice boomed over the open channels, declaring this was the price of disobedience. Any further protests would result in more executions. The colony fell silent after that. Minji activated her ship's recording systems. She captured everything. The blockade, the Krithian soldiers, the reports of the executions. She transmitted it all back to Earth on encrypted channels that the Krithians could not jam. On a military station orbiting Mars, Colonel Yuna received the transmissions. She watched the footage 3 times, her face growing harder with each viewing. Around her, junior officers muttered angrily. They wanted to respond, to send ships to make the Krithians pay. Yuna silenced them with a gesture. She reminded them of the council laws. Human military vessels were restricted. Acting without authorization would give the council an excuse to revoke Earth's provisional status entirely. It might even justify military action against humanity. One of her pilots, a young hotshot named Jin, argued that they could not just do nothing. Yuna looked at him for a long moment. She agreed, but officially they had to follow orders. She dismissed her officers. Jin left the briefing room with several others. They gathered in private, away from official channels. They discussed what could be done unofficially. Old military equipment listed as decommissioned. Pilots on leave who might want to take an unauthorized vacation to the frontier. Accidents that could happen to Krithian ships in certain locations. Meanwhile, Ambassador Quan traveled to the council station to formally protest. He brought evidence of the blockade and executions. He demanded justice for the murdered colonists. The council hearing was brief. Kelthor attended, standing tall and unrepentant. He claimed the humans had threatened Krithian soldiers. The executions were self-defense. As for the increased tribute, that was simply a readjustment based on the colony's improved productivity. Quan argued back, his usual diplomatic calm cracking. He raised his voice, citing specific treaty violations. Kelthor listened with obvious amusement. Then he approached Quan, looming over the older human. In front of the entire council, Kelthor struck Quan across the face. The ambassador fell, blood running from his nose. Kelthor spoke loudly enough for all to hear. Humans were cattle. They should learn their place. If they continued to complain, the Krithians would teach them harsher lessons. The council did nothing. Vextal called for order but issued no punishment. The hearing ended with a warning to humanity to accept the tribute demands or face consequences. Back on Earth, Admiral Taeyang watched the footage of Quan being struck. He sat in his office, deep in Earth's military command center. The room was dark except for the glow of multiple screens showing data from across human space. A secure communication channel opened. Colonel Yuna's face appeared. She asked for orders. Her voice was tight with controlled fury. Taeyang recognized that tone. He had felt the same way when he stood in the council chamber 3 years ago. He told her to stand down officially. No military response. Yuna started to protest, but he cut her off. He said to stand down officially. Then he paused meaningfully. Unofficially, she should prepare her people. They needed to be ready for opportunities that might arise. Yuna understood. She acknowledged and cut the connection. Taeyang opened other channels. Messages went out to intelligence operatives across human space. to scientists in classified research facilities, to fleet commanders who understood orders that were never written down. 3 years ago, the Council had dismissed humanity as weak. They had been wrong, but they did not know it yet. Taeyang had spent those 3 years preparing, building networks, developing weapons and tactics the Council could not imagine, waiting for the moment when humanity would need to show its teeth. The Crethians had just given him that moment. Kelthor thought he was teaching humans their place. Instead, he had pushed them past the point of patience. The prey had decided it was tired of running. In the darkness of his office, surrounded by screens showing the vast emptiness of space, Taeyang smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. It was the smile of a predator finally given permission to hunt. The Crethians had made humanity their prey. Soon they would learn that humans remembered their own history. They remembered being prey to saber-toothed cats and cave bears. They remembered what it took to turn the tables and become the hunters instead. The galaxy was about to receive an education. The lesson would be written in blood and fire across the stars. And when it was over, no one would ever dismiss humanity again. The Council announcement came through official channels. 3 human frontier colonies, including Haven 7, were now under direct Crethian administration. The takeover was legal, the Council claimed, due to humanity's inability to properly manage and protect its territories. The Council had sanctioned the annexation. Earth's government issued a formal protest. It was ignored. No military action was taken. To the galaxy, humanity appeared weak and broken. That was exactly what Admiral Taeyang wanted them to think. In a secured bunker beneath the surface of Mars, Agent Somin stood before a holographic display. She was the head of Earth's intelligence network, a position that officially did not exist. Around her, dozens of operatives worked at terminals, monitoring communications across hundreds of star systems. Somin briefed Taeyang on what her network had accomplished over the past 3 years. While humanity publicly submitted to Council oversight, her agents had been busy. They had infiltrated alien communication networks. They had stolen technology specifications. They had mapped every Council military installation within 50 light-years of human space. More importantly, they had learned how the aliens thought. Council species had grown comfortable in their superiority. They followed predictable patterns. Their military doctrine relied on technological superiority and overwhelming force. They had forgotten how to fight dirty. Taeyang listened and approved the next phase. It was time for humanity to remind the galaxy what real warfare looked like. Sergeant Hyun led the first operation. He commanded a special forces unit of 12 operators. They launched from an unmarked station in the outer system, their ship equipped with experimental stealth technology reverse-engineered from captured alien devices. Their target was a Crethian supply depot in neutral space. The facility orbited a dead moon, provisioning Crethian patrol ships enforcing the blockades around human colonies. It was lightly defended. The Crethians did not expect attack this deep in their territory. Hyun's team approached slowly, their ship's signature masked. They deployed old-fashioned signal jammers, technology so primitive the Crethian automated defenses did not recognize it as a threat. When they were in position, they launched nuclear-tipped missiles streaked toward the depot. The Crethians had energy shields, advanced point defense systems, and sophisticated sensors. None of it mattered. The missiles moved too fast at such close range, and nuclear weapons cared nothing for energy shields. The massive electromagnetic pulse from the detonations fried electronics. The raw kinetic force and radiation did the rest. The depot vanished in a series of brilliant explosions. Hyun's team was already accelerating away, disappearing into the dark before Crethian reinforcements could arrive. They left no evidence, no traceable signatures, just wreckage and questions. Kelthor received the report in his command center. He dismissed it as a malfunction or perhaps pirates. The idea that humans could have penetrated this deep into Crethian space was laughable. His advisors agreed. They filed the incident away and forgot about it. Then more incidents began. A Crethian patrol ship went silent near human space. Search parties found debris but no survivors. Another outpost stopped responding to communications. When a relief force arrived, they found the facility destroyed and booby-trapped. The traps used crude explosive technology. 3 more Crethian soldiers died trying to investigate. Supply convoys started disappearing. Ships would enter faster than light travel and simply never arrive at their destinations. No distress signals. No wreckage found. Just gone as if space itself had swallowed them. The attacks followed no pattern the Krethians recognized. Sometimes they came in neutral space, sometimes near heavily defended areas. The methods varied wildly. Missiles, mines, ambushes, sabotage. Nothing sophisticated. Just effective on Earth. Dr. Junho worked in a classified research facility. He led a team developing weapons specifically designed to counter Council military technology. His breakthrough had been simple. While aliens had advanced to energy weapons and shields, they had abandoned older technologies as primitive. Junho's team perfected railguns that could punch through energy shields by using pure kinetic force. They developed nuclear weapons enhanced with alien materials, creating yields that shocked even Earth's military planners. They designed kinetic kill vehicles, simple masses accelerated to relativistic speeds that could devastate targets with nothing but impact energy. The aliens had forgotten that sometimes the simplest weapon was the most effective. A rock thrown hard enough could kill just as surely as an energy beam. Humanity had not forgotten. Captain Minji found herself recruited into the effort. Her freighter had been modified by military engineers during what the Krethians thought were routine repairs. Now her cargo holds contained hidden compartments. Her engines had been quietly upgraded. She ran supplies to human gorilla cells operating in contested space. Doyen worked with her, using his engineering skills to maintain the modifications. They made dozens of runs, always appearing as simple civilian traffic. The Krethians inspected them occasionally but found nothing suspicious. They did not realize the medical supplies they approved contained components for weapons and communications equipment. The Shadow War escalated. Colonel Yuna received authorization for a daring raid. Intelligence indicated a Krethian command ship was making a routine patrol near human space. It carried valuable military intelligence and senior officers. Yuna handpicked her assault force. They used modified civilian ships that appeared on sensors as unarmed transports. When they encountered the command ship, they transmitted false distress signals. The Krethians, confident in their superiority, moved to investigate. Yuna's ship suddenly accelerated. Before the Krethians could react, boarding pods launched. These were not sophisticated alien technology. They were simple armored containers propelled by rocket engines. The Krethians' point defense systems engaged, but there were too many targets. Several pods hit the command ship's hull. The humans inside used shaped explosive charges to breach the armor. Then they poured through, wearing combat armor and carrying weapons designed for close quarters. The fighting inside the ship was brutal. Krethian soldiers were bigger and stronger than humans, but humans had learned to fight in cramped spaces in darkness against larger predators. That was part of their evolutionary heritage. The Krethians had spent generations fighting from behind energy shields and at range. They were unprepared for humans who closed the distance and fought with knives and bullets in narrow corridors. Yuna led from the front. She moved through the ship with cold efficiency, her training taking over. Her soldiers overwhelmed the Krethians through speed and aggression. They secured the command center within minutes. The intelligence they stole was invaluable. Fleet movements, communication codes, strategic assessments. Yuna's team planted demolition charges throughout the ship as they withdrew. The command ship exploded minutes after the last human evacuated, leaving no evidence of what had been taken. The surviving Krethians who managed to escape in pods babbled about fighting devils. They described humans who showed no fear, who fought with savage intensity, who turned their own bodies into weapons when necessary. The reports were dismissed as trauma-induced exaggeration. Then an entire Krethian battle group went missing. 6 warships, over 3,000 Krethian soldiers and crew. They were supposed to be conducting exercises near the boundary of human space. They never returned. Search parties found the wreckage eventually. It was scattered across an asteroid field. The battle group had been ambushed from multiple directions. Nuclear weapons, kinetic strikes, and coordinated small craft attacks had torn them apart. The level of planning and execution suggested sophisticated military operations. The Council could no longer ignore what was happening. High Arbiter Vexthal convened an emergency session. Reports came in from across Council space. Krethian assets were being systematically destroyed. Casualty numbers climbed into the thousands. Kelthor stood before the Council, his scales dark with rage. He demanded authorization for a full military response. Humanity was conducting terrorist attacks. They must be crushed before the situation worsened. Vexthal questioned how humanity, supposedly primitive and weak, could be responsible for such coordinated strikes. Kelthor had no answer. The evidence pointed to human involvement, but it seemed impossible. Earth's government, when questioned, claimed ignorance. Ambassador Quan, his face still bruised from Kelthor's assault, expressed concern about the violence near human space. He suggested perhaps the Crethians had made enemies among other species. Humanity was too weak to threaten mighty Crethian forces. The statement dripped with sarcasm, but it was technically accurate. No official human military vessels had been deployed. No declarations of war made. If humans were involved, it was all deniable. In his office on Earth, Admiral Taeyang watched the council session and smiled. The galaxy had dismissed humanity's threat. They had pushed humans into a corner and expected submission. Instead, they had awakened something they did not understand. Humanity was not fighting like civilized species. They were fighting like survivors from a death world. With cunning. With adaptability. With absolute ruthlessness when necessary. The prey was teaching its predators a harsh lesson. The Shadow War had only just begun. The council chamber erupted in chaos. Representatives from dozens of species shouted at each other, their translation devices struggling to keep up. High Arbiter Vextal finally restored order by activating a sonic pulse that silenced everyone. War Prime Kelthor stood at the center of the assembly. He presented his proposal with barely controlled rage. The Crethian Empire had lost 27 ships, 4 major installations, and over 5,000 soldiers to human attacks. This could not stand. He demanded authorization for total war. Several council members objected. Humanity was still officially under council protection as a protectorate. Military action required proper justification. Others argued that humanity was clearly responsible for the attacks and should be punished severely. The debate continued for hours. In the end, Vextal made the decision. The council authorized Kelthor to pacify the human threat using whatever force necessary. The goal was not extermination, but submission. Humanity would learn its place permanently. Kelthor departed immediately. Within days, a massive Crethian armada assembled. 50 warships, the largest fleet deployed by the Council in decades. Over 20,000 Crethian warriors prepared for battle. Smaller support vessels, supply ships, and troop transports swelled the numbers even higher. The armada's destination was Earth itself. Kelthor planned to break humanity's will by striking at their homeworld. Once Earth surrendered, the scattered colonies would have no choice but to submit. On Earth, alarms sounded in military command centers. Satellites tracked the approaching fleet. Admiral Taeyang stood in the main operations center, surrounded by holographic displays showing the tactical situation. Staff officers worked frantically at their stations. Colonel Yuna was present, having been recalled from the frontier. She asked what the plan was. The Crethian force was overwhelming. Even with humanity's unconventional tactics, facing 50 warships in direct combat seemed suicidal. Taeyang began issuing orders. Civilian evacuation protocols activated immediately. Transport ships began moving people from Earth to hidden colonies in the outer systems. These were settlements the Council knew nothing about, established secretly over the past 3 years. But he had no intention of abandoning Earth. Instead, he activated contingency plans that had been prepared for exactly this scenario. Across human space, military units received encrypted orders. Assets hidden for years began moving into position. The Crethian armada approached human core systems confidently. Kelthor expected desperate resistance at the outer boundaries. Instead, they found nothing. Human patrol ships had vanished. Defense stations stood empty. It was as if humanity had simply given up. Kelthor was suspicious but pressed forward. The fleet entered the inner system, their sensors sweeping space for threats. Earth appeared lightly defended. A handful of orbital platforms, some old military stations. Nothing that could stand against 50 warships. He gave the order to advance. The armada moved toward Earth in a tight formation, their shields overlapping for maximum protection. Standard Council military doctrine. Overwhelming force applied directly to the enemy's center of power. Then space exploded around them. What the Crethians thought were empty asteroid fields suddenly blazed with activity. Hundreds of ships emerged. Not military vessels, but converted civilian craft. Freighters, mining ships, colony transports. Each one had been modified, armed with whatever weapons humans could mount. Thousands of small drones poured from hidden launch bays scattered across the system. These were not sophisticated machines. They were simple kamikaze weapons, loaded with explosives and programmed to ram enemy vessels. The Crythian shields held against the first wave. Energy weapons designed for ship-to-ship combat could not track the swarm of small, fast-moving targets effectively. Then the humans switched tactics. Nuclear weapons detonated throughout the Crythian formation. Not precision strikes, but massive area effect blasts. The electromagnetic pulses disrupted shields and sensors. In the chaos, railgun fire from hidden platforms hammered the disoriented Crythian ships. Kelthor ordered his fleet to scatter and reform, standard counter-ambush tactics. But the humans had anticipated this. As Crythian ships broke formation, they ran into minefields. Not energy mines that showed up on sophisticated scanners, but simple nuclear devices hidden in debris fields. More ships died. Kelthor's carefully planned assault dissolved into a confused melee. His vessels fought dozens of individual battles across the system. Every time they destroyed a human ship, two more appeared. Every time they cleared an area, another wave attacked from a different direction. Agent Soman's infiltrators activated sabotage programs they had planted in Crythian computer systems over the years. Ships suddenly found their weapons offline, their shields flickering, their navigation systems providing false data. The chaos multiplied. Sergeant Hyun led boarding parties against damaged Crythian vessels. His teams used the confusion to attach to crippled ships and fight their way inside. The Crythians tried to repel them, but close-quarters combat continued to favor the humans. In narrow corridors and cramped compartments, human aggression and adaptability overwhelmed Crythian strength. Captain Minji piloted a freighter that had been converted into a weapon. Her cargo holds contained antimatter warheads, technology reverse-engineered from alien sources and enhanced with human engineering. She accelerated toward Kelthor's flagship, transmitting a civilian distress signal. The Crythian command ship, already dealing with attacks from multiple directions, barely noticed one more damaged freighter. By the time they identified the threat, Minji was too close. She activated the fail-safes that would detonate the antimatter in 30 seconds. Doyen, working beside her, insisted they could still escape. Minji shook her head. The flagship's shields were too strong. They needed to deliver the payload directly. She ordered him to the escape pod. Doyen refused to leave. If she was staying, he was staying. They looked at each other for a moment, understanding passing between them. Then Minji pushed the throttle to maximum. The freighter struck the Crythian flagship just as the antimatter detonated. The explosion was visible from Earth, a new star briefly flaring in orbit. When it faded, the flagship was gone. So was Minji's ship. Kelthor survived. He was not on the flagship but commanding from a secondary vessel. But his fleet was being destroyed around him. Of the 50 ships that entered the system, over half were already damaged or destroyed. Human forces seemed endless, appearing from every direction. He broadcast to what remained of his fleet. They would retreat, regroup, and plan a more careful assault. But as his ships tried to disengage, they found humans had mined the exit vectors. More ships died trying to escape. Finally, in desperation, Kelthor activated an emergency council communication channel. He demanded reinforcements, claiming humans were fighting like animals without honor or rules. They turned everything into weapons. They showed no regard for the conventions of war. His transmission was intercepted by every human listening post in the system. Dr. Hana, now coordinating diplomatic efforts from a command ship, recorded every word. Then she hijacked council communication channels using codes that Agent Soman's network had stolen. Her broadcast reached every council species simultaneously. Her voice was cold and clear. She told them they wanted to see what humanity was capable of. They had dismissed humans as weak, as primitive, as suitable only for servitude. Now they were learning the truth. Humanity had survived on a death world. They evolved as both predator and prey. They learned to make weapons from sticks and stones. They turned their entire planet into a laboratory for warfare and survival. Every instinct, every bit of creativity, every lesson learned from millions of years of evolution had prepared them for this moment. The Council wanted to see humanity at war. They were getting their wish. And they should have been careful what they wished for. The transmission ended. Around Earth, the battle continued. But the outcome was becoming clear. Of the 50 Crythian warships that had entered the system, only 12 would escape. Kelthor's mighty armada had been shattered. Worse news came from across Council space. Human forces were striking everywhere simultaneously. Targets hundreds of light-years apart came under attack within minutes of each other. Humanity had not been defending. They had been preparing a massive counteroffensive. The prey had become predators, and they were very, very good at it. Kelthor's ship limped away from Earth, its shields flickering, its hull scarred. Behind him, the human homeworld hung in space, damaged but unbroken. Around it, hundreds of human vessels celebrated their victory. Kelthor understood now. Humanity had never been prey. They had just been patient, waiting for the predators to come close enough. Now the hunt was on, and the Crethians were running for their lives. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session. The Grand Chamber, usually filled with confident discussions of policy and trade, now buzzed with panic. Representatives huddled in groups, speaking in urgent whispers. Their translation devices created a cacophony of overlapping voices. High Arbiter Vexthal called for order. His compound eyes scanned the assembled aliens, noting the fear he saw there. This was unprecedented. In 5,000 years of Council history, no protectorate species had ever fought back successfully. Reports continued flooding in. Crethian losses exceeded 38 warships and 15,000 soldiers. Human guerrilla forces controlled key trade routes across 3 sectors. Multiple Council species reported attacks on their military assets near human space. The situation was spiraling out of control. Then every communication screen in the chamber activated simultaneously. Admiral Taeyang's face appeared, broadcast on a frequency that bypassed all security measures. Agent Soman's infiltrators had given humanity complete access to Council systems. Taeyang spoke calmly, his voice translated into every language represented in the Council. He began by listing grievances. 3 years of exploitation, illegal tribute demands, the annexation of human colonies, the murder of human civilians, the public humiliation of human diplomats. He explained that humanity had never wanted war. They had come to the Council seeking peaceful cooperation. Instead, they had been treated as servants, as property, as jokes. The Council had mistaken patience for weakness. Vexthal interrupted, his mandibles clicking angrily. He declared that humanity had violated dozens of Council laws. They had conducted military operations without authorization. They had stolen technology. They had attacked Council peacekeeping forces. Taeyang smiled slightly. He asked what laws protected humanity when Crethian soldiers executed civilians. What justice existed when diplomats were assaulted in the Council chamber itself? The Council's laws apparently applied only to the weak. He continued speaking. Humanity had observed the galaxy for 3 years. They had learned how Council species thought, how they fought, how they underestimated others. Council civilizations had grown comfortable in their superiority. They had forgotten that advancement required struggle. The Council species evolved on worlds where they became dominant easily. They developed technology in peaceful environments, then used that advantage to conquer others. They had never faced real adversity. Their military forces followed predictable doctrines because nothing had ever challenged those doctrines. Humanity evolved differently. They came from Earth, a world that tried to kill them constantly. Ice ages, predators, diseases, disasters. Every generation of humans fought for survival. They learned to adapt or die. They turned everything into a weapon. They developed creativity born from desperation. Taeyang stated his terms. The Council would recognize human sovereignty immediately. All annexed colonies would be returned. Reparations would be paid for damages and deaths caused by Crethian aggression. Those responsible for ordering attacks on civilians would face trial. Vexthal refused flatly. Humanity was still a protectorate. They were primitives who got lucky. The Council would not negotiate with terrorists. Military forces would be deployed to crush this rebellion. Taeyang had expected this response. He gave a hand signal off-screen. Across Council space, human forces activated. They had spent the last week positioning assets for maximum impact. Now they revealed the full scope of their preparations. Critical trade routes suddenly found themselves blockaded by human ships. These were not military vessels but converted civilian craft, thousands of them, positioned at key hyperspace junctions. Cargo could not flow. The Council economy began grinding to a halt. Resource systems came under human control. Mining operations on dozens of worlds reported human forces seizing facilities. They did not destroy anything. They just held it, preventing Council access to vital materials. Dr. Junho's research teams broadcast technical specifications across all channels. They demonstrated human innovations in weapons technology. Railguns that could pierce any energy shield. nuclear devices enhanced with alien materials, kinetic kill vehicles capable of destroying space stations, all reverse-engineered from Council technology and improved through human creativity. The message was clear. Humanity could not only fight back but innovate faster than Council species. They had taken 3 years of observation and turned it into technological leaps that would have taken Council scientists decades. Colonel Yuna's fleets emerged from dark space. They positioned themselves around key Council worlds, not attacking but simply present, watching, waiting. The threat was obvious. Humanity could strike any target they chose. Agent Soman released classified information across public channels. Council secrets spilled into open view. Corruption, illegal operations, military plans, financial scandals. Her intelligence network had penetrated everything, recording it all. The Council's carefully maintained image of benevolent oversight shattered. In the Council chamber, panic truly set in. Representatives demanded action, but what could be done? Human forces were everywhere. They controlled too much infrastructure. Fighting them would collapse the Council economy. Negotiating seemed like surrendering to terrorists. Several Council members argued for accepting human terms. Others insisted on military response. The debate raged for hours while the galaxy waited. Then Ambassador Quan entered the chamber. He had not been invited, but human control of security systems allowed him access. He walked calmly to the center platform where humans had stood 3 years ago, begging for acceptance. He was no longer asking for anything. He was dictating terms. Quan spoke quietly, but his words carried weight. He addressed Vexthal directly. The Arbiter had called humans monsters. Quan corrected him. Humans were not monsters. Monsters killed for pleasure. Humans killed when they must, when survival demanded it. The Council had thought human kindness was weakness. They mistook restraint for inability. Every species in the galaxy evolved under Council protection, comfortable in established hierarchies. Humanity evolved under nature's rules, where mercy was earned through strength, not given by superior authority. He explained that humanity did not seek domination. They wanted respect, security, the right to exist without exploitation. The Council could grant these things peacefully, or humanity would take them by force. The choice belonged to the Council. Vexthal looked around the chamber. He saw fear in every face. Even the powerful Krethian representatives sat silent, remembering their shattered fleet. He realized that refusing human demands would lead to war the Council could not win. Humanity had done the impossible. They had unified against a common threat, mobilized their entire species, and fought with a coordination and ferocity no one anticipated. More importantly, they had proven they could adapt faster than any Council species. The vote was called. By a narrow margin, the Council accepted human terms: full recognition of sovereignty, return of annexed colonies, reparations, investigation of war crimes. Additionally, humanity would receive a permanent seat on the Council with full voting rights. The Krethian Empire would be placed under sanctions until they complied with all terms. Military restrictions on human forces were lifted. The galaxy had a new power to reckon with, not because humans were the strongest militarily or most advanced technologically, but because they were the most adaptable, most creative, and most willing to do whatever survival required. 5 years later, the Council had changed significantly. More species received fair treatment. Protectorate exploitation ended. Ambassador Quan served as humanity's representative, respected and feared in equal measure. Admiral Tai Young retired from active service but advised the Earth government on military matters. Colonel Yuna commanded humanity's expanded fleet. Agent Soman's intelligence network continued monitoring potential threats. Dr. Hana worked on establishing new diplomatic protocols based on mutual respect rather than hierarchy. Dr. Junho's research teams collaborated with alien scientists, sharing knowledge that advanced everyone. Captain Minji was mourned as a hero. Her sacrifice inspired a generation of humans who understood that freedom often required the ultimate price. Engineer Doyen, who died alongside her, was remembered as well. At a council session, Quan noticed representatives treating a newly arrived species with the same dismissive contempt they once showed humanity. The aliens, small and seemingly fragile, stood nervously while council members questioned their worthiness. Quan interrupted the proceedings. He addressed the newcomers directly. welcoming them and assuring them they would receive fair consideration. Then he turned to face the council. He reminded them that appearance meant nothing. Technology meant nothing. What mattered was the will to survive, to adapt, to fight when necessary. Humanity had looked weak once. The council had underestimated them catastrophically. He looked specifically at Vexthal, who shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Quan stated that every species deserved respect until they proved otherwise. Those who dismissed others based on advancement or appearance would eventually face consequences. He ended with a warning wrapped in wisdom. In space, in the dark between stars, everyone was vulnerable. Every species could become prey under the right circumstances, unless you were human. Humans remembered being prey.